Alrighty. Hey everyone, how's it going?
Quite nicely. How about you?
Really good. Audio works. I'm so proud.
Nice.
I just want to go ahead and introduce you all to my community. I believe each of you have been here, but who are you and where do we find you?
Who wants to start?
Oh, okay. You want to pop things off? I certainly can. Hey everyone, I'm Trihex. I'm the face of Try Hard, your favorite global emote on Twitch. You can find me over at twitch.tv/Trihex. I was a guest on what this is not a podcast, right? What are we again? What is this?
It's like PiP partners
What are we
in
doing?
Praxis. So we call it PiP. Just a panel.
I was part of this panel for I think it was the first episode of like talking about veganism. I had a great time. And so I decided to come back here again. I'm sorry I've been gone for a month. I apologize here, but we're back now though. So I'm excited to talk about today's topic, which I will make sure that Lumi can
Oh no, we're starting.
I was like, who's got
right in with
doggos?
the
I hear doggos.
dogs. I'm so sorry. So yeah, we will be
Wowie.
talking about men's liberation today. And Trihex, I believe you're going to be joining us next week as well for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I'm very excited for that. So
Trihex, are you vegan?
I'm not. No, that was why I was excited. I was like, oh, I get to talk to some vegans about what was their journey like, because I'm intrigued. I may go into that. I have to like do some more homework through the whole thing. But yeah, I've seen some stuff that have my eyes opened on, like not just like the ethical concerns of consuming meat, but also the performance and dietary benefits to dodging meat. Honestly, that was really cool.
Yeah.
We had a great time.
Yeah, no,
And,
I watched it. It was awesome. It was really sad every time I see someone learn for the first time about the pregnant cows. It's like first time I learned that, I was like, what the hell? Really? Perpetual pregnancy? That's so mean.
Yeah, it's wild. Wild.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
did any of you see Joaquin Phoenix's acceptance speech at the Oscars?
Oh, that was so good.
I heard of it. I know there was two big ones, right? I mean, not particularly relevant here, but like Joaquin Phoenix's speech called out what was it, racism at the Oscars? Is that what it was?
Veganism, but in a very intersectional way, because he ended up talking about how people, it was super intersectional. Like he talked about gender a little bit. He just referenced them briefly. Gender, I believe he referenced race, country, maybe a lot of different issues, and recognizing how all oppressions have kind of the similar stems. It was very, very impressive in my opinion. So
Yeah, it was really impassioned. He invoked his long lost brother in the very end too. It was really emotional.
Yeah.
He did all this in one acceptance speech, like 10 minutes long.
Yeah, he won for the Joker, and then this was like his speech basically was all about like the way we treat animals is super fucked up, and we should do something about it.
Yeah. It was, and he referenced the cow issue. It was incredible, actually. I was like, wow.
Wow. I will. Well, thank you for informing me. I will actually go catch that now. I didn't know it was like that. I thought it was a little like 2 minute, hey, I'm cool. Hey, Oscars are racist, whatever. It wouldn't be a bad thing. I didn't know that those speeches can get that long. I thought they kind of made it.
It's not 10 minutes. Sorry, I didn't want to mislead you. It's just like it feels like it's a lot of stuff condensed into a very well packaged package.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like he had the topics very well. Like he just said exactly what he needed to say, and that was it. But it was incredible to unpack on stream a little bit. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it, for sure. It was incredible.
It's 3 minutes of awesome. Okay, well, I am sold. I'll pop that on my queue of things to watch when I'm eating food next stream.
Nice.
Awesome. Also, Janami, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself? Who are you? Where can we find you?
Gladly. Hello, my name is Janami, or Nathan. I'm a variety caster here on Twitch, and we do lots of game playing. I hope the audio levels are good. Was it last panel? Was it the panel before that? I think I almost destroyed anyone's ears by gently adjusting the volume slightly overboard. But I hope it's better now. We do play lots of video games like Soulsborne and platformers. We have a Deathless Celeste challenge ongoing, almost got it. And a very cozy, comfy community talking about mental health, as well as LGBTQ topics as well. And I am super, super honored to be here. I know Lumi, we know each other for quite a while already, and so it feels really cozy and comfy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
It's especially excellent to have you on for this panel because I feel like men's liberation is a topic that you and I have connected a lot on, and so thank you for being
True.
here. I really appreciate that. Lance, what about you?
I'm feeling extra snug and cozy today, so it's nice to be on such a cozy stream with all these wonderful people. I'm Lance. I go by he, him pronouns. I do mostly politics and other silly. Well, actually, no, politics isn't silly. Wow, I'm starting out terribly. I'm too comfortable. I'm sorry. But yeah, I do mostly political comedy kind of stuff streaming. YouTube by the same name, and you can check us out at twitch.tv/TheSerfsTV or youtube.com/TheSerfsTV, where we usually spend our days taking down right-wing heroes, all the ghouls and terrible people in the world. That's kind of our bread and butter.
Thank you, Lance. Yeah. I always feel like you're so...
Add your... Janami, wait, you're doing a Deathless Celeste run? How's it even...
Yes.
So do you start over again when you die? Like, that's a game... That's like Super Meat Boy. Like, you dying is like... That's how you learn when you're playing that game. So how are you doing that?
So there's a couple of speedrunning techniques that make the game safer. A couple of routes where you can skip some portions. We're down to 1 death for the entire run, so it's almost there. It's almost there.
Okay. Respect. I'll have to come check it out. I didn't know it was like that. I was like, you had me IRL Pog, and I was like, what?
Yeah, I gotta be honest.
Yeah, it's been a little side project. I don't know how many people here know Celeste. It's a beautiful, wonderful game. A platformer. It's challenging, yes.
It's a Metroidvania game, right?
Not so much, no. No, it's just a platformer.
It's more like Super Meat Boy.
Yeah,
it's a platformer that strangely has themes of tackling depression and anxiety.
Yes. It's never explicitly stated what exactly it is, but it tackles themes of mental health beautifully. It's incredible. I bought it for the gameplay, and I cried more than once during playing it myself. It is incredible. Wholeheartedly can recommend it.
He's
it's
not
wonderful.
Alone. I also cried too, like various times. I was not prepared for that at all. Like a platformer making me cry. Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually give it my game of the decade.
Yeah.
Like I can't recommend it enough.
Hands down, it's incredible. Yes, and designed by a trans developer.
What?
Music also made by a trans folk, and it's heavily hinted that the protagonist herself is also trans.
What?
Wow.
It's like the greatest video game of all time.
It is.
Right? Holy cow. That's incredible. Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So rolling into our topic a little bit, we are talking about men's liberation today. What does masculinity, I just want to open with, what does masculinity mean to each of you versus what you feel it means to society?
Working out, screaming, and stinking.
Is that your
Just
version
joking.
of masculinity?
No. God forbid, no. I'm just joking. No. I think, if you ask me, masculinity is something that is being redefined at the moment heavily. Mm-hmm. Something that we redefine again and again and again, which is good. It's great that we critically think about it, what it means. There's stuff that we know as like traditionally associated with masculinity, as I said, like working out and being all buffed up.
A cold beer.
Yeah. All of that. And so it's kind of difficult for me to answer what exactly is masculinity per se. And I'm happy that I'm struggling to answer, give like that direct answer, because it means we are in this process of redefining it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. if you want me to go next here, yeah, there's like two interpretations here. One could be the trope loaded one that we all see society perceive it as, one who is like numb to emotion, and it's beneath me to ever embrace that because I gotta just macho up and just break through the brick wall that is whatever I'm feeling and just like get it done, which is both dangerous and like not mentally healthy at all. That's what I would interpret it as. Like if you're in tune with your emotions and you're like aware that you need to like cry or whatever, oh, you're just a pansy. You get tougher, you need to chew more nails for breakfast and get over it. Essentially, that's the masculinity that I see society perceive as. And it gets like glorified and glammed up to beyond any reach possible. But what it should be, that's a good question. Or what I would like to define it as a positive trait would probably be more. I have for me, it's a lot of conflating with like I guess like being one with like fatherhood. Like you're okay with like you're aware of sacrificing things within your own ecosystem for the greater good of those you care about. That's kind of what I see as like intrinsically masculine, but I don't know if that's exclusive to masculinity. I don't know. That's a really open question, so it's kind of like it's kind of tough to like define it so abruptly right now. That's what comes to mind for me, particularly with it.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, Trihex said a lot of things that I would have wanted to say. One example I'd like to point out though is one that just happened like 2 minutes ago, where both the lovely people below me were talking about how they both cried while playing a video game. I used to do that all the time as a kid, but that's when I was like by myself, because I knew if I ever told anyone that when I got to school I'd get beat up or they'd call me the F slur or other stuff like that, right? But that shouldn't be the way. That shouldn't be a sign of weakness just because you're like emotionally open or you have feelings, which hopefully we all do, right? So we kind of get trained under toxic masculinity to suppress all these kind of things, and that's supposed to be part of what it is to be a man, to have cold beer, a nice woman with big tits, and 9/11 was bad. That's masculinity.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can look at some of the expectations of men versus the realities of men, right? And where are some areas that you feel like there's been expectations on you or perceived expectations of you as a man that haven't really went well with who you are as a person? I think Lance just opened with one that was very a clear example of crying but not wanting to talk about it necessarily or doing that alone because of the expectations that men won't cry, won't be engaging in their emotions in that way.
Honestly, it's hard for me to answer this question because like for me there was so many things I was going through like during my teenage years because I didn't really have a father figure. My dad is like super duper AFK and super duper relevant to anything of where I am right now. And so I really don't know if this was more like I was struggling going through puberty, understanding like the idea of dating, relationships, sexual security, insecurity, and being okay with not knowing where I was going with any of that stuff altogether here because I had no one to really talk to about it other than like I guess like my older cousin. So I really don't know like how much of that is like me struggling with my masculinity versus like me struggling with a lack of a father figure or really any direct understand like all the shit I'm going through throughout middle school and high school, particularly at that time. I'm sorry, it's kind of like a nothing burger for you, but like I don't. That's definitely what comes to mind right now.
No, I think it's interesting to like hear you say that right after talking about what masculinity is and talking about fatherhood and the sacrifices.
Ooh, it does
and the...
connect. Oh no!
Sorry,
yes.
but I was just like, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. Thank you, Trihex. Janami, I feel like you have a lot to like.
Just a crazy
I've heard you talk on this a little
monster
bit, and
that wants to indoctrinate
I'm curious your perspective. Specifically regarding the question of where areas you feel like you've had expectations on you as a man, but that didn't fit who you were.
There's a couple. So for those of you who I haven't talked before, I am from Europe. My family comes from Poland, which is traditionally a very conservative country, very Christianized. Is that a word? That's not a word. I don't know. You get what I mean. So there were very traditional gender roles, family roles, etc., which were also tried to be in my early years and in my teenage years, as well as my school, which also was very conservative and traditional and wholly hack. Lance, you mentioned it earlier about the F word being thrown around and such. That was that daily, every class. That these type of things, where generally anything that was not considered manly or like even feminine would be considered awful, would be considered weak, etc. And something you should not engage in. Now, I do music. I'm a pianist. I studied music. It's a prime target in that, for example. Of course, girls play music. Girls play these type of things. Happen.
Really, is that
happen
a stereotype? I was like, I used to play piano too.
It was a huge stereotype where I came from, at least.
Oh wow.
I think it comes from that perfect picture of the girl that sits in her white dress at the piano. It's played all beautifully, etc.
Yeah, I find that's a weird one, honestly. That's weird.
Really?
That even. Yeah, it's weird that like that perception was common in Poland. I find that like really weird.
Oh, we're getting Jenna in really quick.
I'm not Poland here.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going well.
Oh, I have to. Yeah. One sec. How do I do it?
Click your name.
Thank you, Trihex.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome in, Jenna. I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having me, Lumi.
Absolutely. We were just quickly going over some of the expectations that Janami has gone through regarding what expectations he's had on him as a man, but that weren't like necessarily fitting him as a person. So
I'm just broadly collecting a couple of things, like considering music. It is weird for me to hear that. Is so weird for you. It was such a huge part for me when it is like that is one. Many from my community know that I'm a bit more flamboyant. I'm a bit more and like emotionally very expressive. Something that is also not traditionally considered manly. Rather the stoic, no emotion, cold beer, cold hard guy.
I actually, sorry to do this, Lumi. I had a question for you in relation to this because you know so much more about gender theory than I do. The idea that gender is a social construct, right? Does that play into, I guess, the idea, like obviously, I guess within that, masculinity itself would be a social. So if we're redefining these terms, is there anything that historically comes directly from an association from old gender dynamics between, like, you know, the man, the woman, the hunter, the gatherer?
what do you mean? Like, are you saying that historically we might want to pull things from history, or are you talking about the shifting gender constructs?
Well, so you're
history?
asking. So you're asking what masculinity means to us, right? And then I guess in relation to society and how it defines it. And I was curious: is there a certain aspect, like how much of it is we've imposed upon ourselves? How much of it comes from like historical roots?
That's a good question. So it has absolutely shifted a lot throughout history. I haven't studied the history of gender and how it's shifted, but I am aware of some of those cases, right? And so it's hard because a lot of times I get people in my chat saying, well, you know, hunter-gatherers, this is very natural. And then even pulling it back to our nature, right? But then we get into the...
Your audio is
Yeah, I was
Am
like,
I
I can't.
scuffed?
I don't know if it's for your mic, but I'm thinking it's not the internet because you'd be blurry.
Oh.
Try talking again. Maybe stop now. But it was cutting out every like 3 seconds for
Oh,
about 3
no.
seconds.
Is that
Well,
better?
chat is saying everyone's audio is fucked.
Everyone's audio is fucked? Why?
Okay, so if that's the case, then that would mean that your audio routing software, if you're using a virtual audio cable, is probably bugging out a little. Maybe.
Oh.
But let's try it now. Maybe it's you sound fine now.
Yeah,
True.
yeah. Chat, keep us updated, please. Okay. So okay, Trihex, apparently you sound fine.
That's
How's
good.
that work?
ASMR stream win.
It could be Discord. I've been having audio problems. That could be the case.
It could be Discord, yeah.
Yeah, I focus less on kind of the history and more on the nature versus nurture aspect, because, and I take a very strict constructivist perspective. So there is this idea that constructivist is more leaning towards the nurture side of things, that gender is something that you learn as you grow up based on how people treat you and what you see in the media and things like that. But there is the reality that there are a lot of things that come from, it's almost everything within us. The psych field has come to the conclusion that it's a combination of your genetics or nature and nurture. So to deny that reality, that some of it is nurture, is absurd. However, that comes with a lot of assumptions based on people's genetics, right? So assuming that people born as a female have genetics that are all very like genetics and not only that, but other biological makeups like hormones that are so dramatically different from males, when in reality there's a bimodal distribution, right? So, and there's a lot of overlap. So it's like assuming based on, it's creating stereotypes and then reinforcing them very heavily in society. So the reason I take a constructivist perspective that's very strict when engaging with people is because even though I might know if they are male or female, and therefore they may be more likely to be, their genetics have whatever particular makeup, that could be totally wrong. And it's just stereotyping people and kind of restricting freedoms where they might be very different from what I'm expecting. And I don't want to impose that lack of freedom. So when we go into this idea of how do we redefine masculinity, or what does masculinity mean to us? That is a hard, almost trick question, right? If I take a constructivist perspective, I would say I don't want masculinity, femininity, or anything to exist because I think it's restrictive. But then I can't just impose that on everyone, right? So as people who identify as men, it's very interesting to ask you, like, what do you define as masculinity, and how does society's views affect you? And that's kind of what we're here exploring a little bit. Like your experiences and again, those restrictive areas where maybe you've had a partner who didn't support your emotions. I know that I've been someone that's engaged in that, where I've been not as supportive as men's emotions as I should have been. And that's damaging. That's not healthy. So, and it goes against human nature. So a big thing about men's liberation is that issue of the social construct and how it goes against what's healthy for humans, and trying to deny that, where a lot of people will try to pull in gender constructs and say basically like, well, it's just natural and normal for men to be tough and not cry and do these manly things, you know? And I'm just like, are you okay? Who hurt you?
I won't lie. I find that idea behind as a part of masculinity is really, really harmful to relationships. Like saying, "Don't show your emotion, be tough." It makes communication extremely restrictive and extremely challenging. And I find it's actually been a downfall to one of my own relationships because he was so I guess in his way of not sharing how he felt, because he didn't want to seem like a bitch. I couldn't get him to communicate with me and tell me how he felt. He really locked himself down.
Yeah. And I could absolutely see how that would bleed over into a relationship and make communication very difficult. Have any of you had any experience, like challenges to your relationship that you felt like tied into ideas of masculinity, whether it was your own or your partner's?
It's like it's reinforced, right? Like I know exactly what Jen is talking about. We were talking about it at the start of your stream, where it's basically like you might have to cry in private because if you admitted that in school, you'd get beat up. I mean, high school's already pretty vicious. They look for any excuse to. If you're different in any way, even slightly different, let alone if you have like some kind of open emotional, I don't know, feelings. If you have feelings, they'll harp on you for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can think of a couple of things here actually, and these all stem back from high school because high school for me was just like mentally absolutely like brutal. But as far as not particularly exclusive to relationships right now, I mean, if you want to continue to explore that one before I pivot back to my high school stuff, we can. But if you want to hear my two things I have about masculinity in high school, I also can too.
Love to hear your thoughts. Go for it.
Yeah.
So in terms of like what was considered masculine in high school, there was, again, I guess geographically this is relevant here. I again went to high school in rural South Louisiana, which is a very big difference compared to when I grew up in diverse Orlando, Florida. My parents divorced in 2000. My mom won full custody. My mom's father wasn't doing very well, so she decided to move back to Louisiana to take care of him. She brought me along with them. So I, age 0 to 11, I was in Orlando, Florida, where I didn't even like see race because I was around so many like different people. Didn't even really matter at all, right? We're all just playing Pokemon and video games, so it didn't really matter. Over to rural Louisiana, where just complete, like, I mean, super 180 to where, again, it's important to describe this here, where in middle school, 4 groups: black guys, black girls, white guys, white girls. And they're all doing this subconsciously. They're not even aware of it. They're just like doing it because it's like what they're, I don't know if it's like an at-home learned racism thing or whatever it may be, but that's like, there's like, yeah, you're like me, so I'm going to hang out with you. And like, that's what kind of dictated what people were doing. But anyways, though, so I come into this completely not into this kind of mentality at all. I see it for what it is. I'm like, this is really, really weird. And just to give you more of some framing here, but in high school, losing virginity ASAP was definitely the thing I saw reimposed over and over again. And you were the absolute cuck lord if you weren't bragging about how many chicks you were smashing that weekend or how many girls you had on your AOL, whatever the fuck, everything. Yeah, you were whack. And it was like, well, I felt like I was the bottom of the I had this new source of insecurity because I felt like I was at the bottom of the get laid chart because what do I even do, right? Like, it wasn't in my interest here. I wasn't conditioned to like deal with this kind of thing at all. So I gotta continue beating that. Like, I'm not like A1 Chad masculine, doing stuff. I'm sitting here macking on girls in 9th grade or whatever, or 8th grade. So there was that. But even beyond that, I don't even know where this even came from, honestly, but I had another phobia throughout where I was like, oh God, okay, cool. I'm not getting laid and I'm at the bottom of the food chain. All right, that's fine. But if I talk to a girl or anybody, right, I'm just like, there was like this, I don't know where this came from, subconscious phobia that if oh my God, what if I like go on a date, but I say the wrong thing, or I don't 10 out of 10 them in every aspect here. They're gonna go back to their girlfriends and gossip about how like not 10 out of 10 I am, and now I'm in a worse condition than I was prior. Do I risk engaging and trying to repair my food chain status, or do I just like do status quo or what? Both these things kind of like paralyzed me into a perpetual insecurity where I never felt the society's perception of high school masculine at all. And it just like it drained me to the point where I didn't know what to do by 10th grade. And I ultimately just let it all go. It's like, you know what? I'm already a 0 out of 10. Fuck it. I'm just gonna be 0 out of 10, but be happy finally.
Oh man.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It sounds pretty dramatic here, but that's honestly like what it was like for me, at least. And I can provide more context to why that was. But yeah, I'm wondering, am I alone? Did Janami or Surf, did y'all feel any of this from y'all's high school upbringing, or am I completely off here? It's more of a
yes.
I guess I felt the opposite.
Really?
Yeah, like I don't know, maybe Lumi feels the same. Basically, you were expected to be a virgin or do like next to nothing. Meanwhile, the guys were expected to do like have what you were thinking, and if you slept with them, you were massively slut shamed, massively, like to the point that I know some girls would leave schools, because they were so bullied. And for example, I refused to do anything with anyone because I was in a small town, and they was just awful. And I would get slut shamed, and people would make up lies about sleeping with me, and I would get bullied the crap out of as a virgin who had never touched anyone. Called a slut, whore. Like this one guy made up a story about how I gave him a BJ in the bathroom, but I had never even seen a penis in my life. And yeah. So I'd say there's like polar opposites here, where some women experience this. Meanwhile, guys are expected to, go out and sleep with a bunch of girls.
Yeah, that's a pretty horrifying dichotomy. Because on one end,
no,
right?
guys can't win and girls can't win. Like it's just deadlocked.
And don't forget, and it's completely irrelevant after high school. Like once you're in college and you're in the real world, or like all that trivial tribalism nonsense is completely dissolved.
It's so much better. That's what I always want to tell kids who are suffering in high school. I was like, it gets so much better once you're outside of that. It's prison.
Wrong.
High school is prison.
I wish I had an older brother tell me that. I had no one. If I had one person tell me that, I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off.
Oh no, it's okay. I wish there's a way to make it better, because I feel like there's so many kids that get scarred for life, and get forced into these boxes in high school that make it so traumatic moving into college and real life. Like my sister, for example, when she lost her virginity, she started crying when she had to, like, she was telling me because she didn't want me to think that she was a slut. She had been dating this guy for 3 years and she was bawling her eyes out, barely able to tell me she had slept with him. Like, it really goes on into men and women's adulthood, the traumas that they experience in high school and the boxes they're forced into. And it's not as easy for others to just go off of it gets better when they're so traumatized from their past.
That's something that I was gonna ask you all about. Like, how did that experience in high school affect you? Because I know I had a lot of my own experiences early on, and it really affected my ideas of love and how to engage with people. So like, did you find like once you got out of high school, you were like, oh, it's not like this, and there's a lot more freedom? Or did you have some lingering things you had to unpack and reconsider? What is romance, or how much do I value that, and how does sexuality play into me, like my identity and things like that? Did you have to unpack those, or were you just out of high school and like, I'm free? I'm curious what your experience is there.
I'm a butterfly.
Honestly, I don't really know. The high school stuff I can identify pretty well because it was so vivid and beat over me for like 7 years straight. Or I say 7, like 6 years straight. It's a lot more abstract in college because I don't really know, because I didn't go to university right away. And there's like different ways of like how this whole thing develops here. Some people don't do higher education right away. Some people do like a year off because they're beyond suffocated of like the burden of going to somewhere and reporting daily for educational, force feeding or whatever. Others may do community college, which is a whole different vibe than university. And then you got university, which is like its whole other like 10 chapter breakdown right there, because you got like university culture, X higher education. And if you're coming fresh off of high school, it's a whole different thing, because I don't think you have the real world employment work ethic ingrained to understand how privileged you are to even be at this point. Even you stepping on a university campus, you're already ahead of like so many who just fall to the wayside fresh out of high school because they're not real world ready. And it's kind of a derail here, but they're not real world ready. They're like the ones who just kind of like bugged around and like sold bootleg DVDs or CDs or drugs or whatever it may have been in high school, and were so worried about side hustle, but not actually like preparing for the real world in any kind of measurable way. Yeah,
all the Zoomers are going to be like, "What is he talking about? Bootleg CDs, bootleg DVDs?"
I'm sure there's an equivalent out there right now with the hustle thing, but yeah, they're not prepared. So it's just like, to me, there's like big three things. There's community college, there's delaying higher education later on, and then there's like going into university, and all three of them I think will eventually give you the reminder that, oh wait, high school was this really awkward, tribalized, not social nonsense. And then when you're in higher education, you can see like, there's such a bigger diversity of acceptance of everyone doing their own thing. Finally, how you wish high school actually was, that you can then socially thrive if you were like, you felt like you weren't able to thrive comparatively in high school. But how everyone gets to that point of realization is a little bit different, I would think. So, like for example, for me, like I went right out of high school into community college, which was a very different experience than 3 years later where I went to university and saw what that was like. And I feel like that's a very different thing than those who go right out of high school into university, because that's like ooh man, that's a whole different thing, honestly, I think. Sorry, it's a huge derail again. I apologize.
No, I feel like you're right on topic, and even if you aren't on topic, the point isn't really it's to just chat, really, honestly, and explore these. So, did you both feel like coming out of high school, these ideas were dropped pretty easily, or what were your thoughts, Janami or Lance? Did you have any? Like,
Janami, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So, maybe for a little bit of background, I went to school in Germany, so school system here is probably a little different.
Definitely
We don't have a differentiation between middle and high school. It's all packed into one school. So spent a lot of years there, 9 years, with the same people, which definitely greatly shaped me. And that's definitely something that up until maybe today, probably up until today, is still stuff that I'm carrying with me that I know I need to work through. For example, I did have a ton of internalized homophobia in me because it was so reinforced during middle/high school. Calling anything that's bad gay, calling any man that is slightly not masculine the F word, etc. These type of things. Now, I'm not straight, I'm bi/pansexual, and that's something that I was able to accept just last year because there was so much internalized homophobia. That is, for example, something that I'm still carrying to me. As you said, the world in which we moved during high school and middle school, the society there is so different to when you then go to university and such. When I started studying, I was met with such a different type of people. I felt like. Now, of course, also I did study music, so that obviously also played a huge role in there. But again, maybe the experience for me is slightly different than for you. But I felt like also university, college, is also a bubble. It's a different type of bubble for sure. And definitely one that is much more comfy and cozy to be in than high school. But it's also a bubble, and it's so easy to get lost in there and be like, oh yeah, everyone is just there, and everyone is just so accepting, and everyone is so kind. And then you get out there, you have one wrong conversation with your parent, you realize, oh fuck,
yeah,
damn.
Ooh. Oh wait! Ooh, you reminded me. I'm so sorry here, but you hit me like a
Go ahead.
That
was my punchline. I'm done.
You reminded me here when it comes to feeling masculine. Here's how it really hit me: the generational rift where my mother insisted I go to the homecoming dance and prom, and I had no date for either one, and she was like, "Well, you got to go because you're gonna regret it if you don't go." And I'm just like, "Oh, for what? I hate everyone who's there. They're all like the jocks, and I mean, they're unironically the jocks who just like call me like White Mike and other dumb shit like that. I care about none of them there. All my friends are at Friday Night Magic or playing Yu-Gi-Oh or playing video games at Brand's house or whatever. Like, why do I have to lose my weekend for this stupid thing that I don't even watch sports? Like, I don't give a shit about the high school football team. Like fuck them, dude. Like, I don't even care. Like, why I gotta go to homecoming? So I had to go to homecoming. So I had to have a date. So like my mom talked to her friend's mom, and got me a date with Brittany, who was on the basketball team, who was taller than me, by the way. She was like 5'11", I'm 5'8", and it's just like, oh god, I don't even know this girl. This is so awkward. She's taller than me. She's dwarfing me right now, and she doesn't. As soon as we walked in the door, she bailed on me. It's like, because it was like a prearranged date that like we can tell we both didn't want to be there for. Most awkward picture ever. I unironically was hover handing her in the picture we were taking. So I was like, fucking kill me, dude. And yeah, that super sucked. Like, I felt like absolutely non-masculine at all here. And then my mom was like, and then, okay, here's the actual kicker here. Then so after the whole night was done, I was clearly pissed off because I lost my weekend for this homecoming thing I didn't care about at all here. And my mom was like, "Why didn't you dance with Brittany?" And I was like, "Mom," was like, at this point, I'm like, "Are you paying attention? I'm aggravated. I didn't want to be here. I don't know her. It was a lot being put on me to like initiate. I don't even know how to dance. Like, what you want me to do? Like, use my two left feet and step on her toes too? Like, what was going on here?" And then my mom asked me, "Well, what's wrong? Like, are you gay or something?" And I was like, "Even if I was, what the fuck does it matter? Are you understanding mentally? Are you using?" Yeah, I actually yelled at my mom at that point. But that was the first time I ever actually like yelled at my mom because she was being so oblivious to my emotional state leading up to, during, and after that night. So that was my homecoming from 11th grade.
Did she understand after though?
I didn't talk to her about that again until the senior prom happened, which is a different story. If you want to hear about how that one actually happened. But
did she make you go to that too?
yes.
What?
Oh.
This is bullshit.
Dude,
sorry.
wait, pause there. Are you telling me that like your parents like didn't like force you like did you want to go to your homecoming and prom? Did you not feel like a rift here of any kind?
Just quickly, what exactly is homecoming prom?
It's like a dance. So prom would be when you're about to graduate. It's like a celebratory dance. People take dates, etc. It's pretty. Look up prom dresses and stuff. It's pretty and it's nice and it's woo.
It's a North American thing.
Luckily, and then homecoming, I believe that's American. So Trihex.
So homecoming is, if I understand correctly here, the final game being played at home for the football team. So the football team's coming back home for their final home game before the playoffs happen if they played well enough here. So because football's our dominant sport in USA or whatever, it's like a really big deal. So the homecoming dance is like the celebration of like all of the that particular school's class coming together here. Comparatively, prom, you'll have like different schools all integrate together and come to each other's proms or whatever. Like it's
prom I get. We had that too. Just the homecoming prom was very
sports ball, dance, circle jerk at the end.
Okay.
So the hierarchy here is that clearly if you're on the football team, you're a god at this dance. Like you're the shit there.
I assume.
If you're non-sports, you're pleb tier status. Literally,
I don't speak.
It's literally ingrained there for you. So you just walk around with a big L on your forehead.
Oh goodness.
I know what you're talking about though, Trihex, because like I would have the mentality, especially going into a weekend, where I'd be like, that is so many potential gaming hours that I'd be wasting on something I don't want to go to.
Not only that, it was no training. You know, it was all thrown on me the week of, and I'm just like, I didn't care, and I didn't want to go. Date. I didn't know any girls. I didn't. None of my friends were going to be there, so I was completely like in a isolated environment full of people I didn't know or care to be around. In an environment that just circle jerks all the sports ball stuff and all this other stuff. It was just a lot. It's I don't know. I think it's like walking into a crowded DMV. You know, the Department of Motor Vehicles. It's like walking into a DMV. You don't know anybody there. It's all frigid ice. There's no ice breaking happening whatsoever. It's that, but like hours straight, and you're instant teacher. You're not playing sports. You're automatically like low tier crap.
Wow.
So that was super duper not fun. And I was wondering if any of y'all had to go through like something like that generational thing. Like it's how my parents perceived this. You know, it's cool and awesome, and you'll love it. But you know, times have changed now. It's very, very different for me then compared to them now, or even for the Zoomers now. I would say it's probably really, really different.
Yeah, there was a new comedy movie that came out that was led by two women on Netflix. That was actually pretty funny, and it was all about like obviously the high school experience. And I remember watching it and being like, "Holy shit, Zoomers are woke! Like they're so woke. Things have changed." But like yeah, that's it. Yeah, thanks.
What was it called?
But Booksmart. Yeah, but is that indicative? Like I'm so far removed right now from the high school experience. Like I'm older than the dirt I sleep in. So like I don't know. I don't know if that's what it's like. Right? Is it?
Am I the
I don't know.
youngest person here?
Potentially.
Are you right out of high school, Jenna?
I'm 20.
Okay. So kind of out of high school.
Yeah.
Well, so like, so you're probably more in tune to this. Are kids more like,
You
are they
your
woker
story,
now?
actually.
Is it? Yeah.
What did you say? I didn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I'm saying, are kids today like, are they more like self-aware, more in tune to a lot of these issues, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
Shitty. No. I don't know. I noticed a lot of like they're aware of the issues, I'd say. But it's more so like you can bully each other with those issues now, if that makes sense.
So nothing's changed then.
Yeah, no, not at all. No, it's like they became more woke to use their wokeness against you when they need to. It's
oh wow,
that's interesting.
So they weaponized wokeness. That's not good.
Wow.
Yeah.
I should also bring up here contextually. I'm referencing my homecoming here in prom. This is like 2006, 2007. Just bringing up. I'm also old as dirt here, apparently. So that's like forever ago now. just for comparison's sake on the timetable here.
I had a quick question because you mentioned this Trihex about your differences in height, and I'm someone like I'm 6'2", right? So I've never really had that issue, but that's something that plays, I think, into Lumi's original question about masculinity, because like I've never had a single girlfriend who at some point was like, I couldn't date a guy who was like shorter than me. And so that's
you're 6'2" though. Like, why would you ever get that data?
No. I'm saying like, is that's got to be innate. Like, why is that? Like, I've never understood that too, right? Like, I would have no problem dating a girl who was taller than me, but I don't understand why that's
honestly,
like that's a stereotype.
That's a good question. Okay, so the heightism, I don't know if it's like an ingrained thing, reinforced from society, from media, whatever it may be, but it really, honestly, what bothered me more there was the picture we were taking. It didn't bug me that she was taller than me. It bugged me that we're taking a picture and I didn't feel secure at all because of the circumstances. The height didn't help. I wouldn't say it was a dramatic X factor there. I actually didn't feel any insecurity about my height until I actually became known. Until 2015 when I blew up as Trihex, like beating fans because I was routinely that also I think Lumi, I think you're dropping.
Yeah,
we
were
having
saved. Problems. Yeah.
We're saved now. And routinely people were coming at me and like, oh shit, it's Trihex, dude. I thought you'd be taller in person. Like because of my exuberant personality, persona, presence, whatever you want to, whatever qualification, charisma, you know, they subconsciously associate this like booming charisma with height. And so whenever you see 5'8" me, you're just like, oh, damn, bro, I thought you were gonna be like, you know, 6'5" Chad AF, dude. What's going on, bro? like I picked my height. Like, you know.
I actually on the whole height thing, I personally like guys that are taller than me. Not because guys who are shorter than me are unattractive. I think it's more of like a sexuality standpoint for me where I'm submissive and I like a guy being larger than me. You know, like it's just I don't know. I feel like height for me is a little more dominant. Like I feel like I don't know.
It can be a preference, like long hair, short hair, you know, thigh gap, no thigh gap, big ass, small ass, etc. Yeah, it's all preferences, not a big deal.
And like the what's the word that I'm looking here for? Like the relation between height, strength, domination, etc. It makes sense.
Sounds like masculinity.
It sounds like masculinity, yes. But you know, it's a jump that you can easily make. Someone that is tall will obviously come over as more strong, potentially as stronger. Sorry.
No, I think you're right on point with that. And it's interesting to think of how we tie height into gender and some of the ideas around that, like dominance and manliness. And I know for me, it's interesting as a non-binary person, I have these, I don't know if any of you have seen them, but there are these huge platform boots, and I put them on, and I am like, gender euphoria, okay? Like, I feel like I am towering over everyone. And I'm like, meanwhile, I'm just barely like as tall as like my like, what is he, 13-year-old brother. Still, okay. But yeah, it's an interesting, and the heightism, the insecurities that I've heard from men regarding not being tall enough and therefore not being attractive to women, and how that's tied into gender is interesting for sure. But
I can bring up another moment actually. Here's the one that really hit me. Here's when I actually realized that heightism is real. 2006, I'm browsing through Wikipedia and I'm going through like celebrities, right? So I'm reading about Michael Jordan's life story, etc. And I get to a bunch of other famous people. I come around to Bruce Lee, who I know relatively little about, but I'm reading this whole thing about how his whole life happened and everything else here, right? All of his iconic quotes and all that. And then I just look over at height and I'm like, Bruce Lee was 5'6". I could have sworn he was like 7 foot or 6'5" or whatever.
I was gonna say, wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, 7 foot.
I realized
just towering over his opponent.
Dude, yeah, you could just think about all he's the epitome of masculinity, right? And you're just like, he's 5'6". This man was a beast, a monster. He can contrast to everything you think of, honestly. And you're like, and I was like, whoa, I had all this preloaded assumptions about him being, just a towering monster, but he's 5'6" and he's lethal AF. At that point I realized, I was fed this at some point. I was fed this heightism propaganda at some point, and ever since then I've been aware of it and trying to like combat it and not like look at anyone down for any kind of reason. Because there's a lot of situations here, right? Like imagine you're at a new job and your male manager is 5'4". Think about the complications he goes through on a day-to-day. I think about it once I let it go. He's reminded of it every single, and that sucks. That really sucks.
How do you think that we help on that? Do you have any ideas? Is it just working on our own internalized ideas, or can we talk to people about this in some way? What are your thoughts?
I don't know. It's because it's a social construct. It's kind of really complicated. It requires kind of everyone to be on the same tune.
Would you say it's directly associated with masculinity, being tall and like big?
Tall, big, dominating, strong. Yeah, those are a lot of from my experience. Yeah, those are highly associated with masculinity.
I think it kind of goes in both ways, dude. So there's heightism's definitely a problem. I think if you're a short male or less than average height male at a workplace environment and you're of a higher position, it's frustrating. Likewise, if you're a woman in a high position, and you're like the one. Again, I'm bringing up an example here because I worked at restaurants here. The restaurant I worked at had 5 managers, one store manager, 4 assistants. One of the 4 assistants was a female, and she had it so much harder to engage in authority from the kitchen staff because she was the female. They wanted to walk all over her. And it's because maybe she was like shorter, maybe because she wasn't male and she wasn't just like gonna put up with the shit. So she had to be like the towering bitch, because if she did anything else other than full 10 out of 10, it would walk all over her. And I saw that come into play here. So I think the heightism comes right into play with the, I guess if you want to call this one particularly sexism, then yeah, I think that they're both social constructs, and we gotta have everyone on the same tune. How that is done, it gets better over time. I think it didn't happen overnight, and it's been going on for a long ass time now. So it'll take decades of continued beating in awareness for it to really go somewhere on a mass societal change. But what we can do right now is just kind of like be part of the good fight, I guess. That's really all I have for you right now. I can't force society to like give a shit about it, but I can definitely make a loud ruckus whenever I see it happen around me in my, bubble of interaction.
Yeah. You don't have all the answers, Trihex? What's going on here?
I know, right?
Can't believe you.
I'm not the hovering diamond in the Sims. I can't take everyone else over here.
Off of what Trihex was saying, I think they also experience heightism. Like, for example, I'm 5'8", and I have experienced a lot of guys telling me that like I'm not attractive or I'm not cute enough or it would be better if I was short. because they only like short girls, or like short girls are cuter than tall girls, and basically saying that I'm not really like, I understand the sexuality part because I also do the same thing, but like I don't blatantly shame, if that makes sense. Like I've had so many, even guys I was dating tell me I like shorter girls, but with you it's okay. I'm just like,
so if I can some armchair psychiatry, that might be different in that might be ego protection. Like
That's what I
that
was
is
thinking
like
of, yeah.
as opposed to them
Good
like
point.
trying to like kink you down. They're throwing you down because if they actually have to admit that they're insecure about their height, then they're gonna fall apart because they can't change that, honestly, and they can't work on that. So it's just more convenient for them to preserve their ego by, instead of pretending, you know, that, oh yeah, it's because I like short girls, not because, you know, you're as tall as me or you're taller than me. You know, it's
okay,
just a blame shifting kind of.
Yeah.
that actually makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, I always think like of guy. That's something. So, as I learned about toxic masculinity and masculinity in general, a really bad habit I picked up for like one relationship, and I feel so bad about this. And I have apologized since, but it's like I couldn't help but pick at these insecurities because the reason I was picking, even though I didn't think about it, was, hey, you don't have to do this. You don't have to be insecure about this. But in trying to show that it's like a gendered construct, but it would be like that almost power play that is making his insecurities worse. And I could definitely see like him almost double down and it become like this fight rather than what my goal was to say, hey, this actually, like, it's not a problem. I'm not challenging you because I think you need to live up to it more, but I'm challenging it because it's absurd. And I want you to know that it's okay to not be doing this. But it was a really, really unhealthy dynamic. But I definitely think that plays into like how men are pressed into these areas and then sometimes doing things or shifting that blame almost onto women for being, whether it be too outspoken, too tall, or any of the different aspects that makes them feel insecure in their masculinity. It's kind of unfortunate. For sure. I wanted to get into, so we talked a little bit about how getting out of high school, we get away from some of these concepts and problems. And I felt that way too. For me, it was almost like I got into college and I had, as Janami was saying, almost this bubble. And it's this super cozy, like social justice friendly bubble.
It's great.
And then you go back, you talk to your dad and you're like, oh, oh boy. But it's been interesting coming back to Twitch and engaging with some of the larger Twitch community and suddenly hearing like what comes to mind for me is simp or white knight.
Oh God.
I
hate that word.
Yeah, so some of the concepts here, how do you feel like some of Twitch culture plays into or fights, I almost want to say, is not helpful regarding men's liberation? It seems like this platform could use men's liberation. Where do you see that in this platform? What are your concerns?
Can I ask a question? Is simping only for straight people? Is that a thing? Is it only dudes for women? Because that's one thing.
It's only conveyed with straight people, but I think it can go both ways.
Okay.
Simp
Or
is exactly what?
Oh, Janami.
Oh, you're so cute. I love it.
So wholesome.
Yes, so wholesome. So simping is, what is this? It's like suckers idolizing mediocre pussy.
I didn't know it was an acronym until now.
It is, yeah.
I think
okay.
In any like, I'm just gonna say in like any, like, I think it's like anyone idolizing someone who's mediocre or doesn't deserve the idolization. Or
I thought it was if you stood up for a woman, especially on a panel,
Oh,
and that means you're not doing it because
things.
you actually agree with them. You're doing it because you want to have sex with them.
That's how it's
Yeah,
used.
I would say it's like
basically
bootlicking with like
be nice or a nice human being in general, all to just you trying to sleep with them, and there's no other like reason for it. And so it just discredits men entirely and things they do.
Wow.
And the problem is just like, okay, boomer, it's getting hyper utilization. So now it's being like conflated with anything that's to do with like being nice to anybody ever now. Like, Yeah, it's getting out of control. It's becoming too popular for its own good and getting saturated to nothing.
It almost feels like, to me, it feels like it has a strong connection to the concept of white knighting. Like you're going in and defending someone for ulterior motives, and it's not sincere, and it's very frustrating, I think, the concept, because it almost feels like it drives a wedge between women on the platform and their potential allies. That's been my take on it, and attacking men for being a little kinder to women and actually considering them.
Heaven forbid.
Like,
Yeah,
so,
You
It's
being
annoying.
kind? How dare you? My
so
gosh, I'm
awful.
out of here. What the frick?
Horrible. My friend, for example, whenever I go in his chat, I don't know if you guys know who Lucari is, but whenever I go in his chat and say hi to him, and all he does is like smile and say, "Hey Jenna, how's it going?" His whole chat calls him simp and shames him for talking to me.
yeah.
Why? That doesn't make any sense.
And I'm just like, what the hell? Why can't he have friends?
That's not even going out of his way. That's just like being a normal human being, like saying
Yeah,
hello.
well, Lucari's
Literally,
chat's
they
like very,
shot him
very,
for
very.
being nice to me, and they
Oh,
bully him and
okay.
call him a white knight and stuff. It's really sad. And he's like, "Yeah, guys, I'm a simp." And it's like, no, you shouldn't have to admit that for being just a human to a female.
Mhm.
Like,
Wow.
just human.
Wow.
It's really bad.
Yeah, that's pretty toxic.
Yeah.
I think I see a lot of this. I'm assuming, I don't know if you guys see this as often as I do, because I'm a woman, but I see it everywhere with anyone who's nice to me. Even people in Discord, if they're like, "How was your day?" someone will at them and say, "Simp." And people just shame people for being human beings to women, it seems like. And I hate it. It's awful. And I think it's horrible for men, because men are basically shamed for just being nice. And it puts them in an awkward situation where they have to basically decide if they want to be normal human beings or just shut down women to fit in. It's awful.
Trihex.
Yes,
Dude,
yes,
bursting out of there.
What does
Yeah.
masculinity mean? Jenna hit me like a train again here.
Nice.
Nice guys finish last, and they're beta.
Oh.
That's what society. Let's get in there. You know why you a white knight? Because you ain't getting none. Because you ain't like me, and you don't manipulate women all day long and talk shit and backstab your boys and fuck their asses.
Hell yeah.
And da-da-da-da-da-da. That's
Hell
why
yeah.
I get more than you, and you suck. That's
Trihex,
nice guys finish
you're-
last. That is I hate that. I hate that. That's like the thing that I remember some random quote from wherever the fuck at some point in the past.
Okay,
But yeah,
but
that's what
on a-
masculinity is in society these days. Like,
I
man,
have a
shit,
question
I
to
ain't
the
gonna
women in
finish
the
last. I'm
chat.
gonna do me, man. Fuck that, boy. It's me.
Anyone-
Oh my
Any
God.
woman or guy, is anyone attracted to that guy?
No, we're
Anyone
self-aware.
attracted to him?
Oh, the asshole, you mean?
Mhm.
No.
Yeah, the asshole
fuck
Chad.
you, Elena. I said fuck the asshole, but no, don't. Like I mean, no one likes
Not literally.
you. Yeah.
Fuck him, but not in a good way. No.
I mean, I want to push back against that, but as the nice guy in high school, my experience is pretty much like we did finish last. I don't know, like maybe that's just like from the other side of the fence what it looked like, but it was always like, oh wow, like all the dudes who are assholes and chads and alpha males were the ones who were like hooking up with all the girls.
Maybe. I don't know. For me, it was way more. I mean, I don't know where you grew up at, but it was in Louisiana, it was so traditional. It was literally right out of 16 Candles or Breakfast Club. It was literally just the jocks were football fit, huge hierarchy. If you weren't into sports, you were irrelevant, and just that's really what it was in general.
Well, yeah, but that was it, right? The jocks were basically the alphas, wasn't it?
Yeah.
How it all lined up. Yeah.
Would you
Until
maybe-
high school. Then after high school, it just completely dissolved entirely.
Would you
So
maybe say
weird.
that the reason why we think that nice guys finish last is because the assholes who are getting women are also the guys who won't stop fucking talking about the women they get.
Yeah.
So it gives you the
Ah,
Ooh, that is
that
interesting.
basically
Interesting.
all these assholes are getting all the women and you're not. But
Mhm.
these assholes are also the same guys that lied about having sex with me how many times?
Mm.
So how credible are they in the first place? perhaps it's actually just an illusion. And
you know what, too? Another thing they can do as well is they can lie until it forces relevance into your life. Like maybe you would have never actually talked to that person who was lying about you, but because he was slandering you, it now got him the cold dialogue with you, which he can then he got in context with you. He might be able to get the number off you in that conversation. I don't know. Some people are kind of like that. They'll just like do anything to get attention, because whether it's good or bad, and then brute force relevance until they can penetrate your social circle.
That's what I was gonna say. Is we've got the additional dynamic of this person's a jerk. They are pushy. They buy into this idea of masculinity, and therefore they're going to be pushing women's boundaries more. And I don't know your experience, Jenna, but I had a lot of trouble saying no. People pushing my boundaries. I was scared to say no because I knew people would get angry, and I was scared of their anger. So I would say, well, I'm not really comfortable. I don't really know, and then it's just like men are taught, keep pushing. You've got to be persistent. Yep. You've got to be confident. And that pushes up so hard against women whose boundaries they're struggling to hold their boundaries. So it's like, nice guy finishes last, but maybe at the expense of not pressuring someone into sex and then not bragging about it all over,
I totally agree with you. When you're basically speaking towards consent as well.
Yeah, consent's a huge issue. I'm sorry, Jenna, what?
I said I had a situation exactly like that. One of my sexual assault stories would be, there's a guy that I went on to date, which I figured out was psychological reasons. But the first time we spent time together, we went back to his hotel room. We're supposed to get pizza and just go to a party. And I was just turned 18 at the time. And I remember saying no a lot. Like, you were saying you have a problem saying no. I didn't have a problem saying no, but he wouldn't stop guilting me and trying. Like, I blatantly said no. I'd say at least 300 times. I don't know. Constantly. I even started crying saying no. But, like, I couldn't leave, if that makes sense, because I didn't want him to, like you said, you don't want them to be mad at you.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure there. Like, even when you're blatantly uncomfortable. Yeah.
I was terrified of leaving. He was also another streamer, a pretty large streamer, so I didn't know what to do, because if I left, he could have went around and said a whole bunch of mean things about me, and I was really scared.
Power dynamics.
Well, I'm 18. Like, what am I supposed to do? This guy's massive. And so it's not CX. Actually, Paul, I cried Paul was very nice to me after. He was gonna
chat. Let's not be guessing, please.
Yeah.
Let's not.
You guys will have no idea who it is. No one knows.
Just
and anyway,
yeah.
He would not stop at all. And basically, it came down to him blaming me for him being turned on. But I told him, like, I haven't touched you at all. It's all you touching me. Like, I haven't touched you. And he basically blamed me for everything that he was doing to me.
I'm so sorry.
That's horrifying.
Yeah, but like there's a lot of situations where, for example, like you said, Lumi, it's hard to say no. It's hard to leave. It's hard to get yourself out of those situations because you're scared people will be mad at you. It's terrifying. It sucks.
Yeah. And so thank you for sharing, Jenna. I'm sorry that happened, and we appreciate your vulnerability.
I'm come to peace with it.
But that definitely does show like the dynamics that can go into this for sure. And why it plays back into why the assholes might be seen as dominant, as getting more, as winning and being who they should be. But it might not be as clear cut as that. And I think ideally we want to go towards healthier relationships. That's my goal at the end of it. And the Serfs was mentioning the key component of that, which is consent. We want things to be consensual. In gender dynamics right now, or at least the gender dynamics we grew up with, and some of the gender dynamics that are pushed don't allow for that. So in the simp comment, it's very interesting bringing it back to the concept of simping. What's assumed there? It's assumed that the guy is looking for sex. Why? Because that's all he wants with women? because he's not getting that, because he's, there are so many ideas wrapped up of men in that comment. That just
it's
really
it's
blows
reinforced
my
by
mind.
society too. Like that story that Trihex was telling about high school, like virgin shaming, like it's a huge problem, right?
Yeah.
Like
It
you go through it, high school, and you're like, well, I don't want to be the last one, right? Like no, everyone will know, and they'll know that I'm not a viable mate then at some point. And so like that plays into it as well. Here's a really interesting story, Lumi, because one of my friends is a high school teacher and was recently doing elementary school for the first time, and had a kid on the playground who was constantly poking another boy. It was one boy just poking the other boy, and it was making the other boy cry because it didn't want to be poked, right? And she was like, we always think of consent in a sexual context, but I was trying to explain to this kid, is the other boy what is it, allowing you to do that, or is the other boy requesting that you do that? And I was trying to explain to children at a very, very young age that consent can actually mean that they just don't have any unwanted like physical touching or stuff like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be sexual. It can also just be like, reinforcing the idea from a really young age for males that if someone isn't I guess open to the idea of you doing what you're doing to them, it's not consensual.
Yeah, we absolutely. I think that's a really good and important point, is that we aren't talking about consent early enough, and we leave it to that realm of sexuality and then not only that, but sometimes people just thinking of it as consent to have sex. They don't think of consent to kiss, consent to touch, and it's very unfortunate. And then also outside of the sexual realm, as you were mentioning, just poking and poking and poking. I think that's a really good and important point. Thank you.
And it boils down to communication again, right? Being open, being honest, and also having that space where you can communicate openly, honestly. Like consent is obviously part of that. Oh, Trihex needs to say something. Go ahead. Go ahead. Choose you, Trihex.
All right. What does masculinity mean? Hit me yet again. I'm sorry. I didn't mean Janami, but like rejection. Man has this. I've seen this in my chat a bunch. The epitome of masculinity is, oh my God, the biggest fear is getting rejected. More than anything else. Okay, like even the virgin shaming is like exhausting and stupid and dumb. But the rejection, you were on ego suicide at that point. Getting rejected is like, like again, it's collateral, because it's like, oh my God, that girl is hot, or I want to like, or whatever, like she's cute, I want to talk to her. But if I get rejected, am I fucked? Like, because it feeds the other phobia here of not being a 10 out of 10. You're just like, oh my God, what if my pitch was so bad that she tells all of her friends how bad my pitch was, and now it's not just her that I lost, it's like her and all of her friends too. I mean, not just like losses and ability to talk to, or ability to like date possibly, but like, I am now like vagina poison or whatever at this point. Like, dude, it's absurd, but this is actually what I felt in high school.
Great metal band.
I was scared. I was scared to even like honestly communicate. So I was like, what do I do? I don't even know. To me, because of all the perceptions of masculinity and how like inadequate I was my masculine bar was so low, I was just like, do I talk to women? I unironically objectify them in this really weird sense where I'm like, or they're just like floating aliens. I can't compute how they think, feel, or do. I don't know what to do here. And no, it's wild, because I've had many regulars come to my chat who are looking for emotional rebound, because I end up doing like this like pseudo Dr. Phil thing where I'll consult them on like what they're going through at the time as far as relationships go. And they're like, yeah, the girl rejected me, and for all these reasons here. And I'm just like, well, the problem here, is you're taking it all at face value. How do you know that every single thing she said and admitted is exactly what you may think it is? Like, you're so focused on the insecurity of you being rejected, you're not even viewing the situation objectively here. And I feel like that's definitely a symptom of this masculinity stuff we're going through right now in our current time. It's wild. It shouldn't be that way. Both like the ability to like be stung so hard by it, the idea of shaming by being rejected was just communication. You candidly didn't get responded back to, and the idea that you have to like this facade, you have to like swoon and win every time you pitch to anyone, either direction, right? You have to win every single time is also a facade. It's bonkers, and to me it doesn't make any sense. But I know that as in high school for me, that was like a big thing. It was like. And I feel like for a lot of guys now, it's a big thing. You get rejected. You kind of need like 3 months of like ego repair to even like deal with that again.
You know something that plays into that, and that I think is a really big problem, is the way like all of our movies and books and culture when it's surrounding romance is set up on the idea of like the one, and that you have to pursue one person, and if that one person rejects you, that's the be all end all. Like if you actually look back on some of these movies, like The Notebook, for example, it's super creepy. It's super fucked up. Like a dude threatens to kill himself if this girl doesn't go out with him. Like that's not what we should be teaching people. That's really messed up, And that idea that's reinforced in Disney films. That's reinforced in like every famous literature.
Creepy.
Like
Oh yeah, Twilight's really creepy.
And I read that like in high school, and I was like, yeah, this is good shit. And then I grew up a little bit, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like I was like, oh, this is so romantic. Just casually fuck her. How cute. Oh, nice. No, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Performance. Like I feel like yes, so much that the movies as well. Definitely the fear of rejection. And I think there's this whole idea of performance, right? In our society, so very much, and that is a part of performance. When we think of highly masculine people, performance is one part of it, right? Successful performance, that is. And not only is that something associated with masculinity per se, but it's also something that our society strives on so much. We are being told we are worth what we perform. Our worth is definitely what we can provide as our service. Be that from work, we are what we work as, and the more money we make, the more worth we are in a way. We are moving luckily away from that, where we become more self-aware, and that our performance does not define fully who we are. It's much more than that, and much more complicated, and ties into then whole mental health thing, where we have a huge uprising in people that struggle with mental health, depression, anxiety, etc. But I feel like that is definitely a part of the issue as well. That whole performance thing. Rejection means I was not able to perform. My performance failed. What does that make me? A failure.
And I feel like, I guess I should ask more than state. Do you feel like that's heavily tied to your identity and validity as a man, or not so much? Is it just a feeling in general that you are a bad person versus you are not performing as a man and you're emasculated?
In high school, it was both. It was all in mess. I would even say I didn't even view like women as just other people. Again, it was super objectified in my head. It was just like, I don't know how to. They're foreign creatures that I don't understand, and I didn't treat them like a regular person. Embarrassing enough until college, like until I got out of the high school prison mindset of being like fucking fed, just garbage through my mental hole all day long. Once I was out of high school, it's like, oh, this is how the real world works. This is how proper social hierarchies are supposed to function. And then suddenly I was able to, talk to women and be normal, not be just like attempted masculine doofus all throughout high school.
Would you say it made you feel less human, or like your ability to be a human was limited, like just an average functioning person?
Wait, I'm sorry, the beginning part. In high school, you're asking?
Yeah.
Do I feel that way? Yeah, I felt like because the popularity thing, because it's like this. It's so weird, like the trends and the perception of everyone else. Because you're developing, right? You're still like learning who you are, and you have to develop your identity, your interests, and who you are amongst others who I feel already have that, maybe because they are already popular or whatever. And so if you're not popular, you're going through an extended development, understanding where you are, but you're obviously highly influenceable. So you're just trying to figure out what you can do, and and I wanted to fit in really, really bad. That's one thing I was the only black kid who wasn't doing black things. So I was constantly the one who was evaluating, like, am I being black enough? I can never just be me. I gotta look at them for approval of like how to be, essentially. And then that fitting in alone was already stressful. You add in the romantic shit, and it was just like a whole other bloat I couldn't even deal with, honestly. That was me every day, from 7th grade till half of 11th grade.
Yeah,
it sucked.
Super toxic.
But it got better. The good news here is it got a lot. Like, again, college is where things like totally dissolved for me, and I was able to blossom. Clearly, you see it now because like you know, I was a waiter for 8 years, and I think I'm pretty attentive on being able to be charismatic. So I've come a long way since then, which is faith for a lot of people in chat, maybe who maybe feel
You're
too down on
great.
my downer stories here.
You're great. We love you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so coming out of high school and then into this Twitch ecosphere, where we are still seeing there are, I would say, areas, but it bleeds over. You know, we have quite large areas with what I would argue some bad ideas of masculinity. We can point to, again, the common ideas of simp. You might even say incels, and the virgin shaming in talking about incels. While incels are a real, genuine problem, and there's an element of harassment towards women, pretty fucking severely, but that also is used to attack men who aren't getting laid, right? And white knighting. These concepts are pretty heavily floating around in our Twitch ecosphere, except for apparently in Janami's area.
Janami's like, I'm free.
How do you engage with these topics? Do you try to? Do you just like get rid of them? Where do you think men's liberation, and how are the ways that men's liberation can engage with these topics and potentially change the culture? Or do you think it's not worth even bothering with? What are your thoughts around that?
Could I say something to that? Because I think there's like a super interesting topic. As background, I do study communication studies as well, so this is I'm living for this shit. And I think that Twitch is a platform, as any other social media platform, when it comes to this sort of communication issue, because that's what I see it as. There's a process of amplification. We actually talked about that today on my stream. Well, I'm very happy that it comes up. When we communicate, we add additional informations that are not necessarily in the sentence I say. When Lumi asks me, hey, could you be on the panel? And I respond with, I'm working. I did not directly answer the question. I said something that is actually, technically, something completely irrelevant. It does have nothing to do with the panel per se, but we automatically put in more information in there. Now, on the internet, there is one huge issue. We take away so much context. The way in which we communicate is so one-dimensional. If I look at chat, all I see is colorful names and a couple of letters. I can't hear tone. I don't see any facial expressions. I don't know the person. I have no clue what they have been through. That's why it's so tough to also read irony, sarcasm, etc.
That's what the emotes are for, though.
Yeah, that's what the email is for. But even then, it can be like Trihex. You know that your emo Trihex was misused greatly. For example, the whole PiP debacle. There was also stuff about, if I recall correctly, the emo being used by racists. If I recall, might be that I'm mixing up stuff here.
No,
but like
no.
even that can be misused depending on the context, on the situation you give it. And I feel like, if we narrow down communication then what we do is we create a lot of context. What can happen is that instead of the context kind of putting the stuff in relation and potentially making it more understandable and more nuanced, these concepts like simps, etc., just become so much more amplified per se, because all we are talking about is suddenly this whole idea. And we just amplify the whole stereotype and apply it on a group of people.
Yep. I think it's moment here. I gotta get going. This has been very comfy. I stayed longer than I was supposed to.
I was just
Hope you
thinking,
guys don't
holy
mind.
cow, Trihex, you said you had to go in an hour. You had an hour for us.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. I gotta get going. So thank you all
so
again.
much.
I will see y'all next week. It was good to see you, Jenna, and everyone else obviously here. Hopefully my contributions weren't too emotionally filled from high school scars.
No, thank you
No.
so much.
Huge moods all
Thank you
around
for your
track.
perspective. We really needed it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Cool. I'll see y'all next week. And Surfs, I'm coming back with the raid love. Appreciate you. All right. Y'all.
Oh yeah, no worries. Yeah, it's great to finally have a panel with you, Trihex. See ya.
That was so nice of him to join us. I really appreciated his perspectives on that. So
for sure.
If any of you are not familiar with Trihex, you might be more familiar. Some of you might be more familiar with his emote, but I highly suggest checking him out. Can we get a shout out for Trihex in chat? I'd really appreciate that. So yeah, Serfs, I was wondering, and Jenna, I'm actually curious how you engage with these topics as well. I have, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think you and I can talk about how other genders engage with topics regarding masculinity and how sometimes it seems like almost genders are pitted against each other.
Yeah.
And we can make that worse, or we can work to bring those issues together, and sometimes we do that in some areas and the other in other areas. But I'm curious, Serfs, do you engage with these topics ever? Does it show up in your chat? I don't know.
I thought you were asking amongst like cisheads, and I was like, yeah, if there's one thing straight hetero dudes do, it's talk about masculinity. It's all we get deep into our emotions and we explore theory. So you're asking about my chat. Does my chat bring up these kind of topics? Was there a specific one?
Specifically, like simps, do you run into the concepts of simps, or do you run into any masculinity, ideas of masculinity that can be harmful or boxing men in? And how do you handle that within your chat, or even if you are going on panels? Because for me, I don't see it too much in my chat, except for like the occasional guy who shows up and says, excuse me, I'm a biological man, and I just want to let you know that it is my role to take care of my kids and put the bread on the table, and it is just built into my genes to like kill bears. And then I'm just like, head pats for the dude in chat. Let's talk about biology now.
Cold beer is part of my gene.
Yeah, that's how I'm like, are you okay? Okay. But other than that, I don't run into it too much, other than like suddenly I'm on the Raj Royale, and the Raj Royale.
It's a whole other beast.
It's a whole other beast.
I refuse to go on.
I've been called a simp in the past. Sorry, didn't want to interrupt you.
What? Have you?
Sorry, didn't you?
How
Yes,
did that
simp and
go?
cuck.
Oh yeah.
I've
cuck.
never been so excited
I
about
forgot.
the fact that I was called simp and cuck and insulted in general, I think.
What do you mean? What is the story?
The first time you, Lumi, were on the Raj Royale podcast.
Oh yeah, I remember this. My heart. I was like, no, don't hurt Janami for me.
Okay, well, tell the story.
Sorry.
Chad was really toxic. Holy shit, they hated you. They hated you. And so we had a bunch of people from your community trying to be like, hell yeah, let's go. Let's get some snugs in there. And so we spammed the snugs emote and such. And I got a DM. Suddenly someone whispered me on Twitch.
Oh
was like,
my god.
Oh.
you simp. You cuck. Supporting the SJW. Stop.
Oh no.
I don't understand why people get labeled SJW so often. Like SJW, you think of someone like that blue-haired emote, angry and like trying to force things on people. I wouldn't think of you as an SJW at all, Lumi.
People
You
look
like
at
sit down and have constructive conversations with people. You don't force your views on people. You listen, and you're literally 100% healthy in your political views and how you convey them.
And well,
Tell
it
my dad
has a lot to do with the fact that well, what I was going to say is the right, and especially the far right or the alt-right, have done a really good job of turning that into a pejorative term. Like the idea of being, say, a social justice warrior, if you're someone who actually stands up for social justice, that's not a negative thing, and it shouldn't be seen as one, right? They've done a really good job of rebranding it as being someone.
That word.
Exactly, and a whole bunch of other terms, too.
I think it's a political move on their part to basically discredit people who want change.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's massively toxic that basically they're able to turn meanings of words. Like, for example, my view of SJW is different than yours because it's been so altered by people who disagree with changes in society.
Yeah, of course.
That it's
of
become a
course.
bad thing rather than, for example, fighting for social justice, which in reality isn't a bad thing at all. It's good.
No.
It's healthy.
they-
Oh no, you're standing up that everyone is happy as possible, and that we live in the greatest world possibly. Oh
I wanna live
no!
a life.
Heck
No.
you.
Yeah. And then like calling social justice warriors or portraying them as angry. It's a very interesting dynamic. I talked about this a little on Twitter, but minority rage, men, typically speaking, when you look at theories around masculinity, men are pushed to not show emotions except for which one?
Anger?
Anger. Yes. And so it's just frustrating because it then becomes difficult. That's seen as masculine and valid with guys, but then when I showed anger as a woman, I get called a bitch, right? I'm a bitch. Whereas if
I noticed it a lot on Raj, because I would like, if someone was being super fake or someone was being like a complete asshat, I would call them out. Sure, I didn't do it the nicest way, but I would get called a bitch. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
if a guy did it, they'd be like, "Oh my god, lol, he's such a Chad." Like,
yeah.
Well, it's the same thing with a dude
Yeah.
crying, right? If a guy cries, all of a sudden he's weak or, he's something else.
like it makes me so mad. I remember I was talking to Cutie Cinderella about it a long time ago when she first started on the Raj show. She was like, guys get to be glorified for like being, calling people out and being sassy and all this stuff, but when I do it, I'm labeled a bitch and shit on. So it's like it limits what women can do.
True.
Massively.
That's interesting. Is there like a debate lord woman?
I think of the only person I can think of is I don't think so, but I think of Tree of
I was gonna
Logic
say-
when I think of someone who debates intensely as a woman. But I don't.
I was going to say
I
maybe
don't think
Cyber Witch
so.
Lexi.
Oh yeah, Cyber Witch Lexi does too. Yeah, I think of yeah, I don't know other than that.
But that would play interesting into what Jen is talking about, right? Because if you are seen as aggressive or dominating or even angry, as a woman, it would be seen as you being like, quote unquote a bitch or something of that nature.
On my stream, I can be like, if someone comes in and calls me any name, I'll clap back at them, and then people are like, "Why are you being such a bitch?" I'm like, "This guy just came in and told me to die." Like,
Yeah,
I'm supposed to be like, "Okay, let me just go roll over in my grave. Thank you so much for coming by." Like, what?
yeah. It's very frustrating. I know. I think I'm very lucky because of the chat I have and how they have kind of thought about these concepts. And I have a lot of internalized sexism. So it's actually like trolls come in here and they start trolling and I go off on them. And then I'm like, I'm so sorry. I was so rude, because it's a lot of internalized sexism. I'm like, I was so rude. I'm so sorry. And my chat's like, no, do it more. This is definitely a feminist space. You can tell. Like, my anger is valid, and they saw that it's okay. But I definitely have noticed that in non-feminist spaces, women's anger and minority anger in general is heavily attacked. And I feel like social justice warrior is a word that you can then take and you can place on a guy or someone who's not a minority but an SJW and still apply that, like, oh, you're an angry SJW, and suddenly you can widen the horizons of who you can just paint as this buzzword offended, whether or not they're offended, and dismiss without even assessing their argument or touching it all. You're just like, oh, they're just an offended SJW, and they're discredited. Problem solved. I don't even have to engage with your very deep critique of systematic problems. Problem averted. Like, I can sit here in my status quo. It's very frustrating. Very frustrating. But going back to the topic, how do you engage with someone who calls you a cuck or someone who's calling someone? Do you allow that in your chat? Do you see that in your chat? Do you feel like it's only in certain spaces and doesn't bleed over? What's your experience?
Does it affect you when you get off stream as well? Because, like, obviously female have the opposite. We have the opposite effect where people come and call us sluts and stuff, but you guys get shut down for basically being literally yourselves. So you get simp, cuck, bunch of wonderful, terrible names.
I was like, those
What
are
would
the
you
nice
think-
ones.
What, does it affect you? Because like for me, the negativity affects me when I get off stream.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel the same?
It depends. Like, I don't know how long you've been doing this. I think the longer you do it, the more shielded you probably become. I
Yeah.
remember when, like, I'm from the YouTube scene, so we blew up on YouTube first, right? And I remember it was pretty weird suddenly seeing thousands and thousands and thousands of people actually hate you that you've never met. Like, that was very strange to me. And like ContraPoints put this really well. She was like, being a successful online content creator gives you a superpower, and that superpower is you can hear the thoughts of strangers for the first time, and it's really damaging to your psyche as a result, right? So I think some people just have to, like, some people, I know Sean, for example, I've talked to him, he doesn't read any comments. Some people ban any single negative comment. For me in my chat, what I do is, like, if you're going to be transphobic, if you're going to be like ableist, if you're going to be like racist or any of those kind of things, I'll ban you for that, or at least I'll time you out, right, just to get that out of the chat, because it hurts some people. But I'm totally fine with people from other walks of life coming in there, and I'm also kind of okay with being like, I guess, a sponge for anyone to get it out of their system. So if you want to call me a cuck or a simp, fine, have at it, right? People, if you want to call me spineless, or you want to call me any of like the thousands or 10,000 names you want to do, that's totally cool. Get it out of your system, and then right afterwards, maybe if they stick around, they might want to learn something or have a dialogue. Like, maybe they're not calling me names because they actually hate me, but they're just angry because of something totally unrelated. You never know, right? And having that kind of atmosphere might help some people out. Some people are just like, they just want to be heard for the first time or something to that effect.
Interesting perspective. I wanted to ask you within that, we've been talking a little bit, and I've been mentioning occasionally regarding oppression. Are men oppressed? And why would you react? The reason I asked this question, you don't allow transphobia, you don't allow those sorts of comments, but you allow yourself to be called these words. Do you feel like that could be is that not on the same level to you for some reason, or is it because it's specifically you, or what are your thoughts around that?
Well, okay, I don't allow like racism, ableism, all those kind of things, because I think a lot of those words are dehumanizing. So I think if they're inside chat, it might also hurt other people in those spaces who have been called those names, like, you know, the F slur all the time, or, you know, or something, other horrible words like that. So that's why, like, I don't put that in there. What I'm saying is I allow people from other like political persuasions or stuff like that to sound off, right? Like, I don't mind if someone's in there and they're like, you know, Trump 2020, all of you are simps or something, right? Like, I'm like, okay, fine. And if they're just there in bad faith and they're not there to actually like have a conversation, then yeah, maybe I'll just time them out for fun. But you know, I also want to allow people to it sounds so cheesy, express themselves. But like, I want to allow them to actually like I don't like only fostering an echo chamber. I like having a safer space, maybe, for people who are in there who don't want to, like, you know, hear that toxic kind of language and stuff. But at the same time, I don't want it to only be a place where only lefties hang out. I want there to, like, I want people's, you know, someone who might be of a different political persuasion to be able to feel safe in there enough to be able to ask them questions that hopefully I would be able to give them a different perspective on.
I have a question. Do you think it's toxic to joke with the words simp and cuck? Or would you say that in the like proper?
I'm relatively new to simp. I learned it for the first time on a Hassan stream where he was like, "I'm banning this word," and I was like, "I don't even know what this word means."
It's a good idea.
Did Hassan banned it?
Yeah, he banned it from his chat. Yeah, I don't know if that's still.
I bet he's sick of people when he defends women spamming simp. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. I just I'm always surprised to hear. I feel like I get a lot of like shit, like, oh, you're too sensitive about, you know, your mods are too intense, whatever the fuck, right? And I'm just like, listen, you're trying to throw slurs, like, what do you fucking expect? But it's just really interesting to me to hear someone like Hassan banning simp. So thank you. I just found that interesting.
Well, I don't know if it still is the case, but that was the first time I learned about the word, was in a stream where he was like, I'm banning it. I mean, I agree with you, Jenna. I think it's like it's bad for everybody if we're in this atmosphere where if you stand up or even have a conversation with a woman, I didn't know it was that bad, right? I didn't know if you even popped in somewhere and you said hey and they said hey back, you'd get the simp call. I was like,
It's like, for example, if you go through my Twitter comments, like we could probably go through a few photos. Someone saying I look pretty, below it'll be simp. Like they're just saying, "Wow, this is a pretty photo, simp," or they'll be like, "I hope she sees this, bro." Like it's blatant toxicity towards people who are just being like, "This is pretty." Like being even complimenting a woman will get you called simp. I have people that come in my chat and will be like, "Wow, you look great today," and people will add him and call him simp or cuck. It's like, guys.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's something that we actively have to push back against, because like, what kind of society are we going to live in? Like,
I'm blown away by this. I live by giving compliments. I love compliments. Compliments are great. That's like something we reinforce in our community. We say like we do not have a no you space. We have a yes and you space. That when someone gives a compliment, you're not allowed to say no you. Instead say like yes and you. And so like it's just blowing my mind that we start being toxic because of what? Because of Can we not? Can we not?
Janami, did you see my new emote? I feel very
I saw it. I love it.
But I love that concept. The yes and you. I think that's super cute. But yeah, absolutely. That's a nice culture change. I like how I'm like advertising your stream as like a place to go for it's just a cozy space that I feel is very welcoming to men's liberation, and it's so nice to hear you say like that you don't really see these things and how different your stream culture is. I just think that's so sweet.
It's good. I'm trying to debate if I should ban the word cuck and simp from my chat now, but I'm also like wondering, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe for me, what I would do personally is look at how it's used. I preemptively banned a lot of words a long while back when my community was going to be very different, because they were words used to harass. And then I started realizing my bot is catching all these people. Like we were a family friendly stream, so we had things like penis, vagina banned, and now all of a sudden I'm like teaching about healthy sexuality and how to be safe, and half of my chat is timed out because they're trying to talk about it, and I'm just like, oh fuck. So I think it's like how the word is used is really important.
Context matters so much.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So
Sometimes
don't
it is
bait people
innocent.
into Patch, I'll kick your butt. My mod is agitating.
I feel like there's definitely like innocent usages where you're like joking around with it. For example, like, "Oh, I'm simping for you, happy face heart." I've seen that before. People like making it a kind of, I guess, a bit positive. I don't know.
Almost like reclaiming.
That almost makes it sound
kind
cute.
of.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I've
like
seen a lot of people being like, "I'm a simp heart. I love you." And it's like, oh, okay. But I don't like that word. I've said it a million times on stream that I hate the word simp. Simp is
So it's
awful.
replacing stan, basically.
It's awful. It's...
yeah. It feels like it's very used to isolate men from women and women from men. Like you won't necessarily want to make those sweet comments anymore if someone's gonna come after you as being a simp. And I think that's something I think of a lot, because when someone is going through a hard time, I want to bump my community and say, hey, you can throw some support. But I've noticed with certain times I've done that, some of my community members are getting called simps. And I'm like, God damn, now I feel bad because my community is wading into this like hellhole of nastiness attacking their masculinity, and I'm like, I'm sorry I did this to you. I feel very responsible.
That plays back to when I was originally talking about, like, I don't mind if throw some of that stuff my way, is because I guess what I can do is if I am standing up for, or even like, God, talking to a woman and being called a simp, right? I've never experienced it that bad, but I have been called a simp just for like, you know, saying in a panel like this, hey, can we let her speak for a little bit or something like that, right? The chat will be like simp, right? Is just to own it and be like, well, fine. If you think just being a normal or a decent human being is a simp, then yeah, I'm a simp, sure. Like, you can just have a normal conversation with somebody.
It is that bad though. It's
Yeah,
like
that's really
actually. I hate that word. And a guy mentioned that it's being used in my Discord. I don't know if you noticed, but I don't really have a ton of control over my Discord. I've been trying to bring them in, but I've experienced a lot of pushback from a lot of people in my community about basically, and I've been trying to do this for a year or so, trying to make my Discord better. And I've had like even my friends basically fight me on the fact that I wasn't comfortable with shit in my like certain words in my Discord, and they're like, please, we just want a meme, and they basically would shame me. And I'm not, yeah, from a lot of people, yeah, I know, Sander, but you've seen me trying, and I feel really helpless with trying to make people listen to me, to be honest, and actually respect how I feel. Bring out the bot. Yeah, I might have to, but then they removed the, like, for example, I did do botting for a bit, like getting rid of stuff, but then they literally, my mod, the people who are higher up removed it because they wanted to meme. And when I finally
They're
got
not
around to
listening to you.
I told you.
What
is
okay,
your
when I told
place.
someone
You
after
have
all this stuff went
literally
down, I
all the
finally
right
said,
to
like,
do whatever
guys,
the
I
F you
can't
want.
have this. I've been
Mhm.
asking for like a year for this shit to be out of my Discord. Like, please stop. I was in my Discord channel with my friends, and one of my best friends came in and called me brainwashed and started going off on me because I didn't want that shitty stuff in my Discord.
I'm just a friendly reminder that we have really sweet mods, and one of them has offered to help out a little. And
I need help.
like,
I need,
we can
like,
get you new mods.
I need
Fuck
fucking
that
help.
shit.
How's that a best friend? I don't know. He ended up apologizing to me later, being like, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that, like, you actually wanted this out of the Discord. And I'm like, I'm not brainwashed. I didn't want these words in the first place. I talked to you a year ago, and you ended up, like, shaming me because you wanted memes and humor. I just... I feel really helpless.
No, yeah, that's understandable. I'm sorry that you're going through that with your moderation team. Ooh,
Well,
send you
I have a few friends that stepped up to help, but it's like not easy. It's your Discord. I know it's my Discord, but it's like, if it makes sense that when you build a community around certain community leaders, people will listen to them. So, for example, my close friend, people listen to him and what he wants because he runs the Discord mostly for me. And so when he would go off on me about stuff, okay. My Discord's awful.
But you don't have to fix everything. So you sound a little overwhelmed. Just remember, you don't have to fix everything at once, and you've come a long way. So I know you're probably a little stressed right now, but I think work in progress. And if you need help, please reach out. I see a lot of people just saying things like, just fire your mods and get a whole new mod team. I don't know if you have streamed and needed like a good mod team like I fucking have here. But I have had so much trouble building up my mod team. And even now I'm like, what's happening? Like, it's so much to manage. And then it's hard to find people who are reliable, who aren't talking over you. Especially, I feel like, especially as if you're a woman or you come off as feminine, like I sometimes do, I'm easily walked on, and it people just will take hold and be like, well, this is my idea, and it feels very, it's difficult. And then like, I don't know about you, Jenna, but for me, it becomes like another reminder that people just think they can speak over me and control things that are mine, and I'm just like, stop. So mod teams are
like
hard.
2 seconds ago, like literally 2 seconds ago, someone just put it wasn't 2 seconds ago. Let me look. It was probably 20 minutes ago. Someone put a baby in the Discord that had a crack pipe, and I just had to delete it myself. And then one of my mods wrote below it. He didn't even delete it. Like, no one does fucking anything. And I'm
Mod
really
teams
struggling
can be
because
hard.
I'm asking for help, and I've asked everyone for help. I've done mod meetings, I've done everything, and I just get a ridiculous amount of pushback and people not like wanting to help me, and I can't do this myself. Throwing our mods under the bus, yes, I need help.
Yeah. At some point, yeah. Jenna, if you ever want to get together and just have a chat about moderation, we can do that. I know it's like a huge struggle, so.
I think there's like a continuous struggle as content creators to take care of this. It's like our baby, and I mean, it's different people have different sizes, of course, but it's always our baby, right? This is so much. We put so much time, so much energy, so much. There's a German word that I like a lot, Herzblut, heart blood, in a way. I don't know if that's an English term. But like sweat and tears, basically, into it. And struggling to get that together, I can imagine it's just huge pressure. I think there's so much beauty in you saying, "Hey, I need help," and I think there's so much beauty in all of chat being like, "Here, we want to help. Please take our suggestions. Can we yeet your mods out of there? I can mod for you. Please let me be." Yeah, right. So thank you for doing that. I can imagine that is very overwhelming. Also, like in this entire situation right here. Looking into it, just from a completely random on the stranger. This is your place. This is your Discord. This is your stream. This is your brand. And I understand as a streamer myself how difficult it can be to have these changes. But remember, this is supposed to be your place, and you should not feel bad for wanting to change it. Never. And I think we all here want to support you. How much we can.
I don't feel bad for wanting to change it because I've been trying to change it for a long time. I just feel like I've surrounded myself with people that put themselves before me, if that makes sense. And my opinions and what I want for my community has been a back burner. And I don't know what to do because I've basically cultivated a bunch of people who put what they want before me, and no one cares.
Yeah.
About my opinion. And like obviously it's my community, it's my responsibility, and maybe I should just ban everyone, but I don't know what to do. It's a pain in the booty hole.
Sorry to interrupt you. We just got a raid.
Whoa, huge raid.
Ajvi? I hope I'm not mispronouncing your name. Welcome on. We were just talking a little bit about men's liberation. Had derailed a little into some conversation about mod complications, but welcome in. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope your stream was lovely. I don't know that I've met you yet, so how was your stream? What do you talk about? And a quick introduction to each of us. My name is Lumi. I go by they, them pronouns, and hosting, as I mentioned, a men's liberation panel talking about men's issues and the complications of growing up as a man. And exploring that, I normally talk about social justice issues. To Lance, who are you? What do you do?
Hi, I'm Lauren of the Smurfs, and I do Political Strange. You can check out my stuff at twitch.tv/TheSerfsTV. I go by he, him pronouns. So happy that Lumi invites me onto these shows because they're always a blast.
Janami, who are you?
My name is Janami, or Nathan. I go by he, him. I'm a variety caster here on Twitch. We do lots of gameplaying. We want to provide a safe place on the interwebs. And so I am so deeply honored to be here on the panel, to learn, to be educated, but also to raise awareness on different topics. So thank you so much for being here, and hello and welcome.
And Jenna, co-hosting with me. Where could people find you?
You can find me at twitch.tv/Jenna, even though I'm shadow banned half the time when I'm live. I'm just a casual little streamer. I don't stream that often anymore, and I'm currently learning from Lumi about a lot of social issues, and I am trying to change my community and change my views on life and social aspects. So hopefully you can watch us do that together.
Thank you all. I really appreciate having you here. And we're actually kind of hitting some of our last questions. I really wanted to get into, like, I can talk the theories of gender all day in and out in we can talk about our past experiences growing up, what we went through. But if there was one thing in your day-to-day life right now that you would want men's liberation to be working on changing, that again affects you every day or in your everyday life, what would that change be? What would you like to see changed?
I'll just start because that one is very clear to me. Emotions. So much around emotions, especially mental health. Huge topic for me, but also for my community. We talked about how toxic masculinity reinforces this idea of the stoic man that doesn't really feel, or at least doesn't express any feels except maybe anger and rage and the need for cold beer after killing a bear.
Bear killers. Where my bear killers at? Come on.
Hell yeah,
Not very
brother.
vegan.
So this is something that I feel like has a lot of relevance in the times that we live right now. I actually, it was nice, Jenna, that you said, hey, I need help. Because it reminded me so much. That was a topic that we haven't touched upon just yet, but it kind of connects a lot to the topic of being expressive of our emotions, of our feelings, communication, and showing vulnerability. There is so much beauty in being vulnerable. It's tough. It's difficult. Anyone who like struggled with that and opened up at one point knows how much energy it takes from you to be that open, to be that vulnerable, and asking other people for help. My father never asked for help. I never asked for help up until just a little bit ago when I realized I couldn't. Either I'm going to ask for help or I die. I won't make it. This is something that I would love to see for men's liberation. Teaching men how to be emotional and how to talk, how to be vulnerable.
Thank you. If I were,
I don't want to follow that up. That was way too poignant.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'll follow it up and I'll soften it down for you a little bit if that helps.
Sorry.
No.
I'm so passionate about
No,
that.
that is
You're
beautiful.
so sweet.
I think that's perfect because that's exactly the points that I would go to, but from a different perspective, from someone who dates all genders, but that including men. I think that men being able to communicate comfortably and express their emotions is so important, and it really can affect a relationship and affect yes, me in that relationship and the quality of our relationship, but that also affects that person. And then even going so far as to being able to share and communicate emotions with me in that relationship, yes, but also their friends, because when you can't ask for help, when you can't talk about your emotions, and you can't do this as a man, but a little more easily with your partner, but it's very hard from what I've seen for men to talk about their very personal emotions with their guy friends. And so when they go through a breakup, it seems like they struggle a lot more to be able to cope with the emotions in that because they don't have an emotional support system. So I would love to see men stepping up and being there for those their guy friends and supporting them in a really genuine manner to help them get through some of the more difficult times in their life. So that's what I'd like to see. I definitely have to agree with you there, Janami.
Yeah. Oh, and also we can probably disassociate the idea of being straight and hetero with masculinity at this point.
Yeah.
That's a
I mean,
very
come
good
on.
point.
Like, what is it? The Kinsey report's going to reveal that no one's actually completely. You're going to be a rarity if you're completely heterosexual or completely homosexual. Everyone's kind of just a spectrum in that huge range, right?
Yeah.
I think it was Aristotle who said that, and he was like, well, just from a pure logical point of view, if we think about the idea of manliness, right? What is manly? Doing manly stuff. Being interested in manly stuff. Liking manly stuff. So what is manlier than a man liking another man?
I'm not gonna lie. I like when guys don't particularly just like manly stuff. Like, one of my favorite dates ever was going to the nail salon with a guy, and we both got our nails done together.
That's cute.
It was awesome. It was so fun. I love when guys just like doing things. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's too feminine. They'll go and try it and they'll enjoy it. And I really hate that we bully guys away from doing things like just pampering themselves when it can be a lot of fun and you can really enjoy yourself and it's wholesome and it's sweet.
Good
And you'll smell better.
moment. Yeah. Fair,
I love when guys, like, I don't know, and I like, for example, with me, I love going out and like doing the guy stuff as well, and I feel like it should be a give or take for a healthy relationship where you both get to enjoy what everyone enjoys, whether it be masculine or feminine.
Absolutely.
I completely agree.
It's funny that you mentioned that. Sorry, just want to provide another example very quick. It's funny because my girlfriend, who's straight, I did in one of my past streams cross-dressing, and she did all the makeup and such. There's pictures of such in that. It was so much fun. Side note, bras are fucking torture. What the fuck?
True.
But also it was a lot of fun. It was genuinely a lot of fun to do that with her. She's been asking me more times, when are we going to do that again, than I was thinking about the idea when I would potentially do that again. She was just like, this was so much fun, can we please do that again?
Nice.
That's
That's a healthy
wholesome.
relationship. Lumi, unfortunately, I have to leave.
No, that's perfect timing, because I was just gonna say, hey, y'all, we just shouted each other out, or shouted ourselves out, but guess what time it is? It's we're wrapping up. So
okay.
if you,
Nice.
Lance,
I'm not
would
rude
shout
then.
yourself out real quick, where can we find
Okay.
you?
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me, as always. It's
Thank you for
a complete
joining.
and utter pleasure to have the opportunity to be on your show, Lumi, and to be part of your wonderful community. Hey, chat. Y'all are wonderful. Love all y'all. It was really, really nice to finally do a show with you, Jenna, and you as well. That was so much fun, both of you. I can't and Trihex. I've never done anything with Trihex. So Janami, Jenna, it was a pleasure being with both of you. Hey, anyone you want to check out my stuff, go to twitch.tv/TheSerfsTV, youtube.com/TheSerfsTV, twitter.com/TheSerfsTV, anywhere where social media is sold, it's going to be TheSerfsTV. Bye everybody. I love you.
So
Later.
nice meeting you. Thank you.
Janami, what about you? Where can we find you? And
Everywhere as well under /JanamiPlays here on Twitch as a variety cast, as a gamer playing all the video games like Soulsborne, like Celeste, but also just providing cozy, comfy chats and a community that just wants to be a safe place. Thank you so much for having me, Lumi. Always a pleasure, so very much. Jenna, was such a honor and pleasure meeting you too. To Trihex and Serfs, both gone already. Was so much fun. Seriously, thank you so much for having me, everyone. Thank you for being here as well. And
thank you
I see
so much
all
for
very
joining
much
us.
soon.
Yeah, thank you so
Nice
much.
meeting you, Janami.
Later, Janami.